A wind howled across the cracked plains of Velrith. The ground was black from years of war and the air smelled of ash. Human and Siren soldiers moved through the dust, tired and scarred. Among them was Captain Aaron Vale, a human known for his steady heart and calm courage. He had been on this planet for almost 2 years, fighting alongside the alien race called the Siraean. They were tall, silver-skinned, and proud. They believed emotion was weakness, and they thought humans were strange for caring too much. Commander Lysara Ven stood on a ridge above the field. Her armor gleamed like glass in the dull light. She watched Aaron and the others prepare for the next battle. To her, humans were unpredictable, brave one moment, foolish the next. She respected Aaron's skills but didn't understand his compassion. He would risk everything to save even one wounded soldier, no matter what side they came from. That morning, scouts reported that the Krith Dominion, an insect-like enemy, was moving fast toward their camp. The Alliance had little time. Orders were sent to hold the line near the crater plains, a stretch of broken land filled with smoke vents and deep cracks. It was a place where soldiers vanished easily. Aaron stood with his small team near the front. "We hold them here," he said, adjusting his helmet. "No one gets left behind." A young Siraean soldier looked at him in confusion. "Why would you risk yourself for the weak? The strong must endure alone." Aaron smiled gently. "Because the weak need someone to stand for them. That's what makes us strong." The soldier said nothing. He didn't understand, but he would remember those words later. The battle began with a scream from the sky. Krith flyers dropped fire into the trenches and the ground shook. Plasma bolts streaked through the smoke. Aaron shouted orders, running from one position to another. His voice kept his people steady. Even when the Siraean began to falter, he moved among them, pulling the wounded to safety. Lysara watched from her command post, frustrated. "He disobeys formation again," she said coldly. "He runs into danger without thinking." Her second officer, Girath, hesitated. "But Commander, his actions save lives." "Lives are lost when rules are broken," Lysara replied, though her tone lacked certainty. She could see the chaos, but also saw how soldiers gathered courage when Aaron was near. In the heat of the fight, a blast tore through the ridge. A Sirian squad was pinned down, trapped by falling debris. Without waiting for orders, Aaron sprinted toward them. He tossed aside his rifle, lifting broken metal with his bare hands. The heat burned his palms, but he didn't stop. He pulled one soldier free, then another, shouting for help. His armor was scorched, his face blackened with dust. By the time reinforcements came, Aaron had dragged all 5 soldiers out alive. When the Krith finally retreated at dusk, the field was silent except for the moans of the wounded. The humans and Siraean gathered to count their dead. Aaron, exhausted and covered in blood and dirt, walked back toward camp. He felt proud but also heavy. So many had fallen despite their efforts. Commander Lysara waited near the command tent. Her expression was hard. "Captain Vale," she said sharply, "you broke formation again." Aaron saluted weakly. "Ma'am, I acted because soldiers were dying. I couldn't just stand by." "You risked your entire unit," Lysara replied, her voice rising. "You humans act on emotion, not discipline. You think courage excuses disobedience. It does not." He looked at her, surprised. "Those soldiers would have died, Commander." "Then they would have died as soldiers," she said coldly. "You disobeyed my order." The nearby troops fell silent. The air between them felt heavy. Aaron tried to explain. "Maybe you're right, but I couldn't let them die if I could help." Lysara's silver eyes narrowed. "You are a liability, human. Your compassion blinds you. You fight for feelings, not logic." The words hit him harder than any weapon. He stood still for a long time. Around them, soldiers stared at the ground, afraid to move. Aaron's voice came quietly. "Maybe you're right, Commander. Maybe I don't belong here." He unfastened the clasps of his armor. The sound of metal loosening echoed softly. Piece by piece, he set his gear on the ground, his helmet, his chest plate, his rifle. Each sound seemed to cut deeper into the silence. When he was done, he stood in only his undersuit, his hands rough and dirty. Without another word, he turned and walked past her, past the stunned troops, into the fading light of evening. No one followed him. Lysara stood frozen, watching him go. For a moment, she wanted to call after him, but her pride held her still. Her heart felt strange, tight in her chest. She had seen many soldiers die, but this felt different, like something vital was leaving with him. That night, the camp was quiet. The humans whispered about their captain, While the Syrian spoke of duty, Lysara sat alone in her tent, replaying her words again and again. She told herself she had done the right thing. Orders must be followed, discipline must hold. But then she thought of the soldiers Aaron had saved. 5 Syrian who would be dead if not for him. She thought of his eyes, tired, honest, human, and something in her chest ached again. Outside, the wind moved across the plains, carrying sand and silence. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Aaron walked alone. He carried no armor, no weapon, only the weight of his choice. He did not know where he was going, only that he could not stay where he was no longer wanted. Lysara rose and stepped out into the night. The stars above Velrith shimmered faintly through the clouds. She stared toward the dark plains and whispered, "Foolish human." But the word didn't sound angry anymore. It sounded lonely. Far away, Aaron stopped on a ridge. He looked back once at the camp lights glowing faintly in the distance. He had no hate in his heart, only sadness. "Good luck, Commander," he murmured. Then he turned toward the wasteland and kept walking. Behind him, the first signs of another Krith advance were already forming. Ron walked alone through the wastelands of Velrith. The ground was rough beneath his boots, and the wind carried dust that bit at his skin. He had no armor now, no command, and no clear path. Only the silence kept him company. He thought about what Lysara had said. A liability. The words echoed in his head, and though he tried not to care, they hurt more than he expected. He had fought beside the Syrian for 2 years, shared food, danger, and loss with them. Yet now, after one choice, one act of compassion, he was cast aside. Still, he did not hate Lysara. He knew she believed in her rules because they had kept her people alive. He simply wished she could see that sometimes rules alone weren't enough. Days passed as he moved through the dry plains. He found small pools of water, hunted what he could, and followed the old supply routes he remembered. One night, while resting beside a broken transport vehicle, he saw faint lights in the distance, fire not from the stars. He frowned and climbed a ridge to see better. The glow came from the old refugee camp near the ruins of the Syrian city, once home to civilians who had escaped the war. The fire was spreading fast, and he could hear distant screams carried by the wind. The Krith had found them. Without thinking, Aaron grabbed his old knife, the only weapon he had left, and ran toward the camp. When he reached the outer wall, chaos filled the night. Insect-like Krith soldiers were everywhere, tearing through the defenses. Human and Syrian civilians hid wherever they could. Aaron ducked under burning debris and started pulling people out of danger. He shouted, guiding them toward the tunnels under the camp. "Move! Stay low, this way!" he yelled, his voice firm and clear. Even without armor, his command tone made people listen. A small Syrian child clung to his arm. "Please, my mother, she's still in the fire." Aaron didn't hesitate. He rushed back into the flames. He found the mother trapped beneath a fallen beam. The heat was unbearable, but he used every bit of strength he had to lift the metal and drag her out. His skin burned, but he kept going until both were safe. As the night dragged on, he organized the refugees into small groups, assigning older children to guide the younger ones. He taught them to use the ruins as cover and planned traps using broken equipment. His voice carried hope, and his calm presence steadied everyone. By dawn, the Krith had surrounded the camp completely. Aaron knew they couldn't hold out long. He climbed the wall to scout their numbers. There were hundreds of them. He whispered to himself, "We're not dying here." He spent the morning building barriers using fallen vehicles and sandbags. The survivors followed his instructions without question. Many of them were Syrian who had once doubted him. Now they looked at him with quiet trust. Even without armor, he stood like a wall between them and the enemy. Far away at the main command base, Commander Lysara received urgent reports. The Krith had attacked the refugee camp. Hundreds of civilians were trapped. Her second officer, Girath, said, "The camp is lost, Commander." "We don't have time to send reinforcements," Lysara frowned. "Who is leading the defense?" Girath hesitated. "It appears—" "Captain Aaron Vale." Lysara froze. "What did you say?" "The human. He's there alone. The refugees say he's organizing them." For a moment, Lysara said nothing. Then she turned sharply toward her staff. "Prepare the strike unit. We move now." "Commander, the council forbids it," Girath warned. "They said to protect the main base." "I gave an order," Lysara said, her voice like steel. "We leave now." Within an hour, Syrian ships lifted into the smoky sky. Lysara stood at the front, her mind burning with regret. She had pushed Aaron away, and yet he was still fighting for her people. The thought made her chest ache with something she could not name. Back at the camp, the Krith launched another wave of attacks. Plasma fire rained down, setting more shelters ablaze. Aaron fought with scavenged weapons, old rifles, sharp metal rods, anything that could kill. He fought beside a human engineer named Cole and a Syrian medic named Tyra. Together they held the center gate, firing until their weapons overheated. "Captain," Cole shouted, handing him another clip. "We're running low." Aaron took a deep breath. "Then we make every shot count." A group of civilians screamed as a Krith creature broke through the barricade. Aaron ran toward it, jumping onto its back and stabbing deep into its neck. The creature fell, thrashing, and he rolled away just in time. His arm was bleeding, but he ignored it. Hours later, the sky darkened again. Aaron looked at the horizon. Strange lights flickered through the clouds. Syrian transports descending fast. Relief spread through the defenders. Lysara's voice came over the comms. "Refugee camp, this is Commander Venn. Hold your line. Reinforcements incoming." Aaron looked up and smiled faintly. "You took your time, Commander," he whispered. When the Syrian forces landed, the battle became fierce. Lysara herself led the charge, cutting through Krith lines with her energy blade. She fought with a strength that surprised even her soldiers. Every strike, every step forward felt like she was fighting against her own pride and guilt. She finally reached the camp wall and saw Aaron standing there, his uniform torn, blood running down his arm, still shouting orders and helping civilians escape. For a second, the world seemed to stop. "Aaron," she called out, her voice carrying across the battlefield. He turned, surprised. "You came." "I should have never let you leave," she said before diving into the fight beside him. Together they fought side by side, humans and Syrian moving as one. The sight of their leaders fighting together gave everyone new strength. Even the wounded picked up weapons and joined. Slowly, the Krith lines broke. The enemy fell back under the combined might of the alliance. When the last of the Krith retreated into the distance, the survivors let out a cheer. Smoke rose from the ground and the camp was half in ruins, but they had survived. Aaron leaned against a wall, exhausted. Lysara approached him quietly. Her armor was dented and burned, her face smeared with ash. For a long moment she said nothing. Then softly, "You saved them." "You saved my people." Aaron shook his head. "They saved themselves. I just helped." Lysara looked down. "No, I was wrong about you. I thought emotion made you weak. But it's your heart that gives you strength." I said harsh words that day. Words I can't take back, he smiled faintly. Maybe they needed to be said. They showed me what I stood for. She stared at him, confused but moved. "You would still fight for us after all that?" "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We keep fighting for what matters even when it hurts." Lysara felt a warmth in her chest, strange but real. She placed a hand over her heart in the Syrian gesture of respect. "Then let me fight beside you. Not as commander and soldier, but as equals." Aaron nodded. "Deal." For a while they stood in silence, watching the sunrise over the ruins. The light touched the broken land, making it glow faintly gold. Around them, humans and Syrian began helping one another rebuild the camp. Later, as they walked through the wreckage, Lysara spoke again. "Our council will not like that I broke orders." "They may remove me from command." Aaron smiled. "Then they'll be removing the only commander who still remembers what it means to care." She looked at him, puzzled but amused. "You sound like a teacher." "Maybe I am," he said. "Maybe that's what I was meant to be all along." Weeks passed and the camp became a new symbol for both races. Humans and Syrian worked together, building homes and defenses side by side. The story of the unarmored human who stood against the Krith spread across the alliance. Even the Syrian soldiers began to see emotion not as weakness, but as a source of strength. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Lysara found Aaron repairing an old training drone. "You never stop working," she said with a small smile. He looked up. "Neither do you," she hesitated. "I still think about that day, the words I said." Aaron wiped his hands and stood. "Then make them mean something better." She nodded slowly. "I intend to." The wind blew softly across the camp, carrying the scent of rebuilding and hope. The war was not over, but something important had changed. Two races had learned that strength without heart was hollow, and that sometimes walking away could lead to something greater than any victory. As night fell, Aaron looked at the stars above Velrith. They shimmered faintly, like the light of distant homes. Lysera stood beside him, quiet, thoughtful. For the first time, they both felt the same thing. Not command, not duty, but understanding, and somewhere deep inside, Aaron knew that even if he had left his armor behind, he had found something far stronger to carry with him.